We are live. You're watching the Merged Marketing Podcast. You're listening to the Merged Marketing Podcast. I'm Jason Hunt, and I'm here today with Joe Garcia, and we're talking about the 5 steps to manifesting your dream. Joe started his network marketing career in '93. His global organization has entered into more than 60 countries and over $2 billion in accumulated sales. His travels have taken him to more than 60 plus countries around the world, training hundreds of thousands of people. He has a passion in helping people increase their conscious level and help them believe God really does not make junk. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jay. How's everything today?
Everything's going great. Glad to have you. And I'm sure our audience is excited for this discussion as well, as this is probably lingering on a lot of people's minds out there. The dream, the light at the end of the tunnel. And we're going to dive into that today with Joe. But Joe, maybe you could start off by telling us how your journey led to helping others manifest the life of their dreams.
You know, I've always been the guy that has been able to manifest quite quickly. And but I couldn't eloquently share with people what I was doing on a daily basis or give people the formula that I was doing. It wasn't something I read from a book. It was just something I was doing on a consistent basis. So in 1996, it's amazing when you fall in love with your dream, the universe will guide you in the right directions. Your decisions that you will make more than likely will be the correct decisions if you follow your gut. And about 1996, 3 years into my entrepreneurship, I came home it was about 10, 11 o'clock at night, turned on the television just to wind down, and Larry King Live was on. And he was interviewing a psychic, Sylvia Brown. And for some reason, she captivated me for those 10 minutes. And she was selling her book, and something inside me told me, you got to get this book. You got to get this book. So unlike previous times, I didn't go with my gut feeling. And a few years later, I'm in my local library. My daughter was having swim lessons. There was a library there. And I decided to kill some time. So I walk into the library, and as I was walking into that library, the book was facing me. And I remembered the feeling. So I immediately went on Amazon and purchased the book. And after I read the book, I knew why I was told to read the book. And she talked about one specific situation in the book was about manifesting. She says, when you're in heaven or the other side, and you love the house you were living in, or you want to meet someone that you met on earth, that you were connected, all you had to do is think about that person or think about that house, and it would appear to you. You can instantly manifest. And then she went on to share, you can do the same on earth, but there is a time gap situation here on earth. So up until then, I recognized that what I was doing, I was manifesting things into my life quite quickly with less effort than most people were, because I was in love with my dream. And so that led me to really getting passionate about manifestation and how I can help people not only dream a big dream and believe they can achieve it, but manifest it into their life. And that's been my journey.
So would you compare it a lot? Like, it sounds very similar to The Secret. Is there a lot of similarities there? Do you believe in that story itself, The Secret?
Well, yeah. The Secret came out a few years back, as you know, and it became this overwhelming sensation because of social media, because of technology. But that information is basically the basics of law of attraction. But that information, I've been living it for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, so you said 96 is when you picked up that book off of Amazon. And that is when this journey began for you, where you almost like you manifested your own dream, you scratched your own itch, and now you just want to push that belief and mindset onto others, correct?
Correct. If you look at it, the basic premise of life is if you just observe, one of the blessings I've had, I've traveled all over the world. And what I've found, and I've probably trained over 1 million people, and I've sat down in multiple countries with people eating their food. So I'm in the trenches. It's a lot different than most people who've traveled, either on vacation or, for business. I'm in the trenches, communicating with people, spending time with people. And one of the things that I've observed over the years is that people spend too much time focused on what they don't want rather than what they do want. And the secret to life is falling in love with a dream. So you have a focus, especially as an entrepreneur, and working towards that focus, and that dominates your life. And when that happens, it will come to you.
It almost like you eliminate everything else and just focus on that one thing that truly matters. And that takes up your time, effort, energy. And would that help contribute to achieving or manifesting that dream, is eliminating all the noise, right?
Correct. Awesome. Well, it's almost impossible to eliminate the noise. Here's the challenge. There's thousands of programs out there on changing your beliefs, on if you had a bad upbringing and you had all these beliefs about money and relationships and everything else, and going into the spiritual and removing the blocks. That takes huge amount of work and effort. But what I found is if you really fall in love with your dream and you have a system that helps you focus on that, all parts of your life will move into that direction. So in today's world, it's impossible to remove the distractions, impossible to remove the negatives and all this junk that comes towards us. But if you're aware that you have a system in place where you can focus on what you want, more than what you do not want, you'll end up winning, always.
I love it. You can control your focus. You cannot control the negative things that may pop up in your life, but you can control your focus. Like, for example, not watching the news at 11 o'clock. So let's move over to the 5 steps to manifesting your dream, Joe. Do you want to go over? Is it a framework you want to discuss here today?
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool.
So here's the issue and the challenge is that most people don't have a dream or direction in their life. And it's because we've been programmed not to go after our dreams, to stay safe. Security is one of our top values in the world. If we have a roof over our head, we have a job, we can pay for our food, we have a good life, especially in the Western world. You have a good life, and that's okay. I wanted something more. So the first step is you got to identify what you really want in life. So here's the challenge: is most people can, if you sit at any corner in the world, any major city, and you ask people what they don't want in life, they can come up with a list of 100 and more. But if you ask them what they do want in life, it's very limited and it's usually very generic. So it's real important to understand how things come to us. So if you look and study the major teachers that this world has ever had, from Jesus Christ, Buddha, and Muhammad, and our religious teachers, and so many other teachers since then, the premise of thoughts become things is taught. If you look in the self-help book industry, you can kind of summarize, and most self-help books comes down to one point of view. What we think about is what we attract in life. What we spend the most time in is what we are going to bring back. All the universal principles and laws are focused on that. What we give out is going to come back to us. The law of karma, et cetera, et cetera. So, science, quantum physics, for example, has actually proven that thoughts become things. I think most people today have a general belief that thoughts do become things. They may have heard it before. It makes sense to them. It's logical. But now science has proven that thoughts become things. And so in order to understand how things come into your life, you got to look at the science world. So for example, and I'll create a little synopsis of this. I won't get too deep into it, but basically everything in this world is made up of energy pockets. In the quantum world, they're called quantum biparticles. So you, me, the cars we drive, the houses we live in, the buildings that we see, the roads that we travel on are all made up of the same energy pockets. But science has now proven that these energy pockets have a brain of their own. It's connected to everything that is in the world. Okay, some people call that God, God source, whatever you want to call it. Everything is connected. So when we think a thought with great energy, either negatively or positively, the quantum biparticles now start to form into that thought in a parallel universe. So eventually what happens is, over time with focus, that energy, that parallel universe ends up becoming your universe. So that's how things come into your life. And we've all experienced that in our history. You know, if you can think of a time when we were kids and we really wanted that bike, and our parents would say, we can't afford it. And we knew as kids we can manifest it. So we kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. And eventually it becomes ours. So as adults, we forgot, or, you know, we have forgotten that process because we're so focused on what we don't want in life, our drama that's happening in our life, the issues and the challenges. So once we understand how things come into our life, then you need to understand that these quantum biparticles are always listening. This is why your dream needs to be very specific. So it's not good enough if your dream is to become a millionaire or a multi-billionaire. See, quantum biparticles, that's so generic, we don't know what that means. Or becoming debt-free. You know, how can you visualize becoming debt-free? It's very difficult to do. So the more specific you can get, the better it is for yourself. So that's the first thing, is you got to determine what you want. And it has to be very specific. When I help people with this area, the programming is so deep, people have a hard time feeling worthy to go after something like a dream, something so big. So a lot of times I start them off with activity goals or some small goals, and when they achieve it, then they're rewarded after the month. So it gets them in the process of understanding how this all works. And then they can start expanding their vision through their personal development, through their growth, to something that's bigger. So first thing is, you got to identify what you want. So I'll give you
with that, Joe. You know, and I think the big point there is also it's identify what you want, but being cognizant of the fact that you are attracting not just positive, but it can be negative. And I think that's important of setting those goals that Joe says right there, that you say there, Joe. It's like, yeah, I'm going to set these goals to make sure that focus on the attraction coming to you is positive and not negative.
Correct.
Awesome. Cool.
Because love will always overcome everything. But if you're, you know, there are beliefs in our society. For example, we have metaphors like bad things come in threes. And so that's the process of you're focused on it. And we've experienced this, all of us have it in our lives, where something random happens to us, or we think it's random. Okay? Maybe when we wake up in the morning, we stub our toe and it's painful. And then a few hours later, something enormous happens with our finances, or an investment goes wrong. And you go say to yourself, oh my God, what else is going to go wrong today? Mm-hmm. And then a third thing happens. Mm-hmm. So this is the process where you reverted your focus because of the fear and the wanting. So the wanting and things getting better, you're actually attracting the opposite because you're doing it out of fear and not love. Mm-hmm. And then that momentum starts to continue fastest, and then you start to become in trouble. Because
you're looking for you plant that seed. It's like you plant that seed in your head, and it's almost like it's too late. It's gonna happen. This negative third thing, and this negative things happen in threes is gonna happen because you plant that seed.
Correct.
Yeah. Because
the quantum biparticles are now forming. Because it's all based on emotion, energy. I first learned this process in 1995. I went to a seminar here in the Toronto area by Dr. Nelson. He had an incredible story. He developed this biofeedback machine program, and he programmed it all himself. And his story was he had a dream, God came to him, and in the morning, the programming was on his wall. And what this machine did is it was all based on energy. You get yourself hooked up to it, and it will tell you what your health challenges were going to have in the future. So during that process, they had done some studies, some horrible studies, where they would take a mama rabbit, ship it 5,000 kilometers away, and kill its baby. Like literally kill its baby, and monitor, and they would have monitors on this mama rabbit. And at that right exact moment that happened, the mama rabbit would respond. And so that is the process of, we all have that as human beings, that connection, but because of all the noise that's going through our thoughts, millions of thoughts a day, we lose touch with that power that we have as individuals.
Got you. Okay.
So go back to the next step formula. Sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, is it number 2?
So first thing is you got to identify exactly what you want. And I tell people, write it down every day. Okay, so this is what I did starting every day. So a lot of times we have huge lists of things that we want, or people call, they got 10 things on their list, 15 things on the list. The challenge with that is it takes you out of focus. You get so many things there. People call it your bucket list. And very few people have a hard time, especially entrepreneurs, in focus. If you look at any successful entrepreneurs, and you've seen it with what you guys do, if you look at any successful entrepreneur, they've been able to maintain focus for longer periods of time. So what I did is I had all this stuff on my list, on my top 10 list. I thought, oh my God, I can't track all this stuff. It's so much. So I decided to choose one of the things on the list. If I were to achieve it, then everything else would come. And what can I get behind it so I can fall in love with it? And as an entrepreneur, I was in my early 20s. I thought, okay, I was newly married, just had a child, a dream home, a multi-million-dollar dream home here on the lake in Oakville. I thought that would be perfect. I could fall in love with it. So that became my purpose as an entrepreneur, to achieve that. It's what I ate, slept every day. And here, sure enough, when I achieved that dream home, all the other things I had already achieved, because I didn't realize, because when I achieved, I had the money, all the other things I had achieved. But because I focused on that dream home, I was able to really capture my focus onto that results. And here's what I did. Second thing I did is I started sharing affirmations. I'm so happy and grateful that I've purchased this home. Thank you, God. I wouldn't just say it once a day. I would say it multiple times daily. Yeah. So I was prompting my mind and my energy towards this purpose. So any negative come into my life, I would say it per verbatim. It was all part of my purpose. I'm so happy and grateful I purchased a home. Thank you, God. If I became disappointed, so happy and grateful I purchased a home. Thank you, God. So everything that I was doing, I fell in love with it. So I'm going to give everyone an analogy. For those of you who've been lucky or fortunate to be married or fall in love, when you first fell in love with that person, you didn't have to force yourself to think about that person. That person was always playing in the movie in your mind. So that's what love is. So when you get your dream to that point, the universe will give it to you because you fall in love. It's the most powerful emotion. Anything negative that's happening in life, the love will overcome it. You had some major, terrible tragedy 20 years ago, love will overcome it.
One thing I think about, Joe, is, and I mean, I want to get your thoughts on this, because sometimes if people have something, the light at the end of the tunnel, let's say the big house in Oakville, okay, on the lakeshore, beautiful house. I find if people living in the past are depressed, people living in the future are anxious. So does that not create a sense of just anxiety when you're constantly focused on this goal? So every setback, it just makes you get into this state of sort of anxiety and maybe a little bit depressed. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm just speaking from experience. So when those times came, it just made me want it more. It made me want it more. And immediately I went to a place in my mind where I would pull up a video or I'd read a book or nowadays I would just go onto a podcast like this one and just listen to something that's positive. And then I would start, I start my day with what I'm grateful for. That really helped me put myself in a mindset, that what I was moving forward. One of the challenges today that we have, and technology has brought us so much, but it's also a devil in disguise, if I can use that word, because you go on social media and I don't know what the statistics are, but most of the stuff is negative. People are either complaining about their lives, other people's lives, what the government's doing, first world problems, especially now with conspiracy theories and all that stuff. And people don't realize, and this is part of my step process, is what you give out is always going to come back. Okay, so I always teach people that are in business, and this is so hard. You got to separate yourself from the ego. And so let's say you have a cleaning business, or you have a social media business, or if you have a any other type of business, a service business. People are always watching you. They're watching your feet and what you're doing. So if you're sharing conspiracy theories, you're sharing toxic information, you're going to attract toxic people into your business. You're not going to expand your business. I always tell people that when you business people, when you set up your brand, you got to be cognizant what you're sharing all the time. So with me, I'm only because all I want is prosperity and abundance in my life. So I'm only sharing prosperous things, abundant things. I'm never sharing anything about religion or politics. I'm not giving people opinions on vaccinations or not to be vaccinated. I'm not going there because all I'm doing is sharing what I want to attract.
Everything else is off-brand, right? Everything else is off-brand.
But the challenge is most entrepreneurs and most people follow their ego. They have to react because their beliefs are entrenched. So that's the other thing about entrepreneurship. You have to understand that you cannot control people, can't control your staff. You can't, because you're not in their head 24/7. You got to allow people to be who they want to be. You got to allow your customers to be who they want to be, because that's what is going to give you freedom as an entrepreneur, as a person.
Absolutely. So we've hit on identify what you want as number one. Did you hit what was number two, Joe? If you were to summarize affirmations, and now kicking it to number three.
Okay, so number three is you have to get into the feeling that you've already achieved it. This is where the magic is in manifesting anything in your life. So here's the thing. Anything that's negative in our lives, or fear, the things that we don't want, we immediately get into the feeling. Because that's where worry comes in. If you're an entrepreneur, I was at a restaurant the other day, really great restaurant in Oakville, and the owners were having a bad day. Like I could just sense their feeling. And I know the owners for a few years. We've been visiting there. And I asked him, is there anything wrong? Is there anything I can help you with? And he was surprised that I could pick up his energy. And he said, well, Joe, we're struggling. I don't know if we can meet our bills at the end of the month. It's been my passion. And we got into this conversation about saving his business, what he needs to do. And I said, the first thing you need to do is you got to stop thinking about that, because if I'm picking this up consciously, your customers are picking it up subconsciously. all those fears, and you're not going to expand your business with the right people if you continue to feel this way. So you need to get into the feeling that you've already achieved your dream. So what I did in my 20s, I would take my family and we would visit these homes that I would like to purchase. That was in my dream. And I remember here on the lake, my daughter was a couple years old, 4 or 5 years old at the time. And we went into this new subdivision right on the lake that they're building. And my daughter went into the show home and she took off right upstairs to the room that was decorated for little girls. And she's sitting on the bed. I followed her. I get into the room. I sit on the windowsill. And she said to herself, "Daddy, this is my room." And I sat there and I go, "Yes, Vanessa," I could feel it. A few years later, we moved into that subdivision on the lake. But that little girl just drove me that day. It was meant to be. Because that whole scenario, I dreamed it over and over again. So get in the feeling. So if your dream is a 1967 Corvette, or a dream car, or to travel somewhere. So if it's a dream car, like here in Oakville, many cities, you could go and rent luxury cars. It'll be the best investment that you've ever made. Rent it for a week, drive it, feel the leather. So because what will happen is it'll make you want it more. And you can feel what it feels like. So that takes you to the fourth step, is visualizing your goal like you've already achieved it. I'm not going to get, because of the sake of time, you can just go visualize on Google, on your search engine, and just type in visualize, and thousands of links will come up.
Do you recommend creating that visualization board? Like, so much to go as far as printing off some of those images from some of the things that you want to achieve and putting it on a bulletin board of sorts?
Yes, and that's part of that process, which will help you. But here's the thing, is you got to maintain that focus like I did. So on my dream board, all I had is the homes, what the backyard looked like, because I wanted complete focus. I know there's other people that talk about putting all kinds of stuff on there, and it works for some people. But I tell you, over the years, focus is so important. It's 100% focus. As you know, as an entrepreneur, if you guys don't have your daily tasks and you're not focused on the end result, you're going to be in trouble.
100%.
So the 100%. Focus is critical. The fourth thing is visualize, and I would recommend you do that at the same time every day. So it becomes a habit. So I'm going to share with everybody a reason why you do that. A number of years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago, NASA, the North American Space Agency, did a study. And they took a bunch of astronauts and had these astronauts wear these concave glasses. And these astronauts had to wear them 24/7. The challenge was the glasses had them looking upside down. So every single one of those astronauts by day 26 started seeing right side up with the glasses on.
Wow.
They did a second study, different astronauts in this group, and they changed the study by 1 day. So day 15, they had to take the glasses off for 1 day and then start the process over again. You know, in that second group, it took them an additional 26 days to see right side up, just missing 1 day. So this is something, when the study came up, I got excited because this is what I was experiencing in my business and life. I knew that people that could focus for longer periods of time would always achieve their goals and their dreams faster, better, quicker than anyone else. They seem to manifest easier. They seem to develop skills easier because they were consistent on a daily basis. Those that went for a week run, stopped for a few days, and then started up again, never were able to build up enough momentum to get the results. So when the study came out, I recognized one key point to it. So if you were a part of that study, it would drive you nuts. You wouldn't be able to function every day. So your entire focus in life was, I can't wait till these glasses are off. Because that's what you want with all this energy. The brain developed enough neural pathways by day 26 help you see right side up. That's what you really wanted. It was your purpose. But by just missing one day, it started the cycle all over again. Just one day.
Wow. Consistency.
So that's why consistency is key to getting results in life. We've all seen it in business. You've seen it with I'm sure, your client, where let's say you have a strategy where they're going to post 2 times a day, and they do it for 2 weeks, and then miss out for 3 or 4 days. They go on vacation, and it's almost like they have to start all over again just to build up momentum, just to get to where they were before. So when it comes to visualizing, you need to set a time every day where you're doing it. And keep in mind this study is just missing one day. It just starts you all over again. So with me, I visualize every day before I fall asleep. So when we're about to fall asleep, our brain gets into the theta level. And that's when our brain can be most programmed and our subconscious can be most programmed. This is why you should not watch the news before you fall asleep. You should not get into a major fight before you fall asleep, because your brain now for eight hours, or how long you sleep, is going to be programmed with that negative energy. So if you're able to visualize with what you want in life and play that movie just before you fall asleep, now you're programming your subconscious mind, which is, millions of times more powerful than your conscious mind. Also, during the day, take a minute at 3 o'clock every day or just before noon and spend 10 minutes just closing your eyes and visualizing you've already achieved your goal, your dream.
Love it. That's awesome. I love that exercise. And I'm going to have to talk to my wife because she loves watching the 11 o'clock news. And I know that is just cancerous for the brain. So it's something that we would definitely have to eliminate. And closing it off there, Joe, number 5, what do you got?
Okay, so let's review. You got to write it down every day.
Yeah.
Second thing, you got to, and it has to be specific. Second thing is affirmations. Third thing, you got to get into the feeling that you've already achieved it. So, do whatever you can. If you want to travel, go and watch movies online. Watch clips. Go to travel shows. If you want to go get a car, rent a car for a week, a couple of days. If you want a dream home, go and visit these multi-million-dollar dream homes that you want. There's a great story by a local movie star, Jim Carrey, who wrote himself a check for $20 million. At that time, no movie star ever earned that kind of money. And he would visit every single day, the studios, and park his car outside and pretend he's visualizing that he's already making a movie for $20 million. And sure enough, he achieved that dream because he was there every day. The universe understood, those quantum biparticles understood he wanted that badly. And it gave it to him. Okay? Fourth thing is you got to visualize it every day. Always. And the last thing is you got to act. You got to move your feet. You got to show your universe that you really want it, and you've got to act on it. So the dream board, that's acting. Make a few calls every day, that's acting. You want a social media process. Set a system up where you're acting every day, moving your business or your life in a direction. Be aware that what you share is going to come back to you tenfold. So if you want prosperity, abundance, and love in your life, only share that. Don't be part of the toxicity out there, because toxicity will kill. It'll stop everything in its tracks. Doubt is toxicity. Fear is toxicity. And you share that stuff. I know a lot of people have good intentions, that they want to save the world. The anti-vaxxers, the conspiracy theorists of COVID, they want to save the world. However, you're not saving the world. You're just magnifying toxicity. and you're going to get that back. So I'll give you a good example of this. Back, remember the Y2K. And most people have forgotten the lead up to that Y2K was, the world was going to end. Logically, we think about that. That's stupidity. Okay? And so I had some friends that literally left, sold their home, sold their belongings, took their family, and went to northern Alaska, Northwest Territories, found the bush, and hunkered down. And they planned this for at least a year. Wow. And sure enough, what happened? Nothing. It destroyed their lives. It literally destroyed their lives. They really believed that this was going to happen. So it's really important to understand in today's world is what we feed our mind on a daily basis is critical to our beliefs, to what will we attract in life. And unfortunately, online, there's no way that we can stop you from watching this junk and that toxicity. And it's important that you be aware that toxicity will kill. It will damage your life. I'll give you another example. In Toronto, 8, 9, 10 years ago, there was a little girl that disappeared, 9 years old. We know the story, from the daily walk that she would take from her home to the local convenience store, and she disappeared. So the police deduced that more than likely someone saw in between the locations, or someone had a part of her missing in one of those homes. So they started to canvass the area. So one of the police officers stopped at a home and felt that this gentleman answered the door and felt something was off. So eventually they got a warrant to search the person's home. And they found kiddie porn on his computer, and they eventually found the girl dead in the freezer. So when they looked back to his history, is they saw that he was getting into this kiddie porn 5 years ago. All his coworkers spoken extremely nice about him. Nothing bad to say. He was never in trouble with the law. So what happened with this gentleman is he started watching this stuff 5 years previous to that time. And that one instance where that little girl was walking by, he snapped. And then he panicked and killed her. So that one instance of feeding the mind for 5 years ruined two people's lives. Because of what he was feeding on a daily basis. And we've seen it in today's time, so many examples of that. So it's important that we be cognizant of what we're feeding our minds on a daily basis. Particularly those people who want to develop in business as entrepreneurs, and you're in social media, there's a responsibility on who you want to attract in your business and what your brand's all about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Toxicity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been great, Joe. This has been a great conversation. And, it's a longer episode than most, but I think it definitely warrants to be a longer episode because it's some quality content here and these 5 steps to manifesting your dream. I'm sure it's given a lot of people things to think about as well as myself. Joe, if anybody has questions out there, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, whyjoegarcia.com, WHY. You can actually, I wrote an ebook on the 5 steps that you can download for free. I think now several 100,000 people have taken advantage of that. It's in multiple languages, and I'm adding more languages because basic information like this can really transform people's lives. It has mine. It's done mine.
100%. Awesome. Joe, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining today. One last question. We end every show with this question, and that is, if you can have one person, dead or alive, to represent your brand, who would it be and why?
Me.
Joe Garcia. Why not, right?
I'll answer the question. It's not an arrogant comment.
No.
But most people are looking for people outside of themselves or stuff outside of them to accomplish their dreams, to accomplish their goals, or whatever it is. And people are searching constantly. But we all have to understand we're all made of the same source. And we all have the ability to manifest incredible things in our life. We have the greatest power given to us. And that's why I said me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. This has been great, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you. God bless everyone. Take care.
There you go, Joe Garcia, the 5 steps to manifesting your dream. Coincidentally, this morning I was actually on Clubhouse, and I was listening to a Kobe Bryant tribute. And Kobe Bryant, lived these 5 steps, and he spoke about it. One of the things that really stuck out to me was, he talks about waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to start training for the day. And obviously his big dream was to compete with the likes of the Michael Jordans and Hakeem Olajuwons of those days. And that was his dream. And, he achieved that by really acting and hitting on number 5, what Joe talked about. You got to act. Is Kobe Bryant would wake up at 4 o'clock every single morning just to squeeze in 2 hours of practice, because he knew all of his competition was waking up maybe at 8, 9 o'clock, getting on the court at around maybe noon to practice for a couple hours. Well, by the time they're on the court at noon, Kobe's already locked in 2 hours of practice at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So the point is you do have to act. You can't just look at your visualization board and hoping these things come and manifest themselves, because there is a lot of work that needs to be put in to get there. So those 5 steps one more time: 1, identifying what you want; 2, the affirmations, be thankful, be grateful, but also, understand what you want to be, right? And number 3, feeling that you have achieved it already. And that leads to number 4, which is the visualization of it, having that visualization board and imagining yourself driving that dream car or working that dream job. Even myself in my job, I started out in a little office space with my company back in 2016. In my head, I wanted to get to where I am today with a thriving agency with, a couple dozen employees. That's what I wanted it to get to. And that's where we are now. And then it's a matter of acting on it. I didn't just wish for this, things had to happen to get to this point now. And that's number 5. You got to act on it, and you got to make those moves and really eliminate a lot of that noise and focus on what matters most to that end result. And those are the 5 steps to manifesting your dream with Joe Garcia. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to give 5 stars on this podcast on your favorite go-to podcast platform. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. Don't settle for good. Be great. We'll see you soon.